It was supposed to be the perfect wedding day in Abuja, but everything was in disarray. The decorations were falling off the walls, and two aunties were in a shouting match at the back of the church. The bride, Tola, stood at the altar in a gown that was torn at the hem, her veil askew. She was near tears but also stifling a disbelieving laugh at the absurd scene. The groom, Kunle, had cake icing smeared on his suit jacket, and a toppled wedding cake lay on the floor nearby. A little boy was somehow chasing a live chicken from the catering area down the aisle, while a bridesmaid desperately tried to catch it. One auntie yelled, "Yee! Mogbi!" meaning "I'm finished," as the chicken nearly collided with her Joe head wrap. Guests gasped and giggled in equal measure at the spectacle. Suddenly, the power went out, turning off the lights and microphone. The hall fell half dark, prompting guests to pull out their phone flashlights. In the dim, chaotic scene, Auntie Bisi's voice rose above the rest. "This wedding don't turn wahala. Oh, this wedding has turned into trouble." No one could disagree. In the middle of the uproar, Tola and Kunle exchanged a glance, equal parts exasperated and hopeful, as if to say, no matter what, we will still get married today. How did it come to this? To find out, we must start from the beginning of this wedding, wahala. 1 week before the wedding, the families gathered at Tola's family home in Abuja to finalize plans. The living room was packed with relatives, and the smell of jollof rice and egusi soup hung in the air from dinner. At first, there were smiles and friendly chatter as Tola's father welcomed everyone and the meeting began. Small disagreements started popping up quickly. They debated the guest list. Tola's family wanted a modest 100 guests, but Kunle's family, with many relatives and friends, had over 150 people in mind. "We can't invite all of Abuja," one of Tola's uncles joked in pidgin, shaking his head. Kunle's side responded with polite laughter, saying, "The more, the merrier, Abi." But a slight tension was quietly building. Then came a mix-up over the aso-ebi, the matching family outfits. Tola's family had ordered fabrics in a peach color, while Kunle's side thought the color was supposed to be sky blue. "Peach K? Who chose peach?" Auntie Bisi, Tola's aunt, frowned, clearly displeased. A cousin from Kunle's side protested, "But we agreed on blue that day." The couple quickly intervened to calm everyone. Kunle raised his hands with a placating smile. It's okay. We can use both peach and blue, one for each side. It will even look colorful." There were reluctant nods and a few sighs of relief. Mini crisis averted, but the real friction began when the discussion turned to the ceremony plans. Mama Tola, the bride's mother, wanted to include a brief Yoruba traditional blessing during the church service, just a short prayer to honor their culture. Mama Kunle, the groom's mother, preferred to keep the church ceremony straightforward and save all traditional elements for the reception. Both women tried to sound casual, but it was clear they disagreed. "It's important to our elders," Mama Tola insisted gently. Mama Kunle replied, "We've done the traditional engagement last month, Iyabo. Let's not make the church service too long with extras." That's when Auntie Bisi jumped in, unable to stay quiet. "We must all respect our customs. We can't just rush and say, 'I do' without proper traditional acknowledgement," she declared, her tone pointed. Kunle's Auntie Sad, never one to hold back, responded, "Nobody is disrespecting customs. Aha! But the church is not the place for too much drama." Auntie Bisi's eyes flashed. "So our tradition is drama to you now?" she snapped. The room fell silent as everyone sensed the hostility rising. Auntie Sad put her hand on her hip. "I only mean, let's keep things orderly. Some people like to create wahala out of nothing." "See me see trouble, oh!" Auntie Bisi exclaimed. meaning she couldn't believe the trouble being stirred. It looked like the two women might really start a quarrel. Quickly, other family members jumped in with nervous laughter and soothing words. Tola and Kunle immediately tried to bridge the divide, assuring both sides that their wishes would be honored in different parts of the day, maybe at the reception instead of during the church service. By the end of the meeting, the atmosphere was a bit strained. The aunties sat on opposite ends of the room, avoiding each other's gaze. The families parted with polite smiles, but the tension lingered. As she departed, Auntie Bisi muttered to a cousin, "They better not try any nonsense on the wedding day." Meanwhile, Auntie Said whispered to one of her nephews, "Some people just have too much mouth." Nope. The seeds of a feud were planted, and Tola and Kunle exchanged worried looks, hoping that in the coming days, cooler heads would prevail. 3 days before the wedding, Tola went for her final gown fitting at a bridal salon in Wuse. Excited and a little nervous, she slipped into the white lace gown, only to find it didn't look quite right. The sleeves were the wrong style and the beadwork was different from what she remembered. Her heart pounded. "This is not my dress," Tola said softly, panic creeping into her voice. The shop attendant looked baffled. After checking the tags and order book, her eyes widened in alarm. There had been a mistake. The salon had accidentally given Tola's custom-made gown to another bride with a similar name and handed Tola the wrong dress. Tola felt faint as the news sank in. Her bridesmaids had to fan her while the salon manager was urgently called. A flurry of phone calls followed. The other bride, with a nearly identical name, had already picked up a gown, which turned out to be Tola's, and sent it to a tailor for some adjustments. "What do we do now? My wedding is in 3 days," Tola exclaimed, voice trembling. The salon manager was deeply apologetic and promised to fix everything. That day became an unexpected adventure across Abuja. Tola and her chief bridesmaid ended up driving through city traffic to track down the tailor who had Tola's real dress. They were both sweating, partly from the intense sun, partly from stress. "No be small thing, oh!" Tola muttered with a shaky laugh as they inched through a traffic jam. Meaning, this is no small matter at all. Eventually they retrieved the gown. It had a few extra seams from the other bride's tailor, but nothing that couldn't be fixed. Fortunately, Tola's friend Simi had a mother who was an excellent seamstress. That night, Simi's mom spread the gown out in the living room and worked tirelessly to restore it to perfection while Tola watched anxiously. By midnight, the dress was back to its intended design and fit. When Tola tried it on, it was as gorgeous as she had imagined. A perfect fit. She twirled in relief as her friends clapped and cheered. "Thank God! Oh!" one bridesmaid exclaimed, grinning ear to ear. Tola finally breathed easy. The gown fiasco had been resolved, and she hoped that would be the worst mishap of the week. Little did she know the real chaos was yet to come. The evening before the wedding, both families attended a casual dinner at a cousin's house in Gwarimpa. It was meant to be a relaxing gathering before the big day. At first, it was. The compound was decorated with fairy lights, music played softly, old King Sunny Ade tunes mixed with modern Afrobeats, and guests helped themselves to generous servings of pepper soup, jollof rice, and fried plantains. Tola and Kunle moved around greeting relatives, trying to ignore the gnawing worry about their feuding aunties. For a while, everything was peaceful, but as the night wore on, the tension between Auntie Bisi and Auntie Sadi resurfaced in full force. The spark came when Auntie Bisi noticed Auntie Sadi handing out matching blue gulub headscarves to women on the groom's side so they could all coordinate at the church. It was a thoughtful gesture, but Bisi felt it was done behind their backs. She approached Sadi with a tight, polite smile that barely hid her irritation. "It seems only your side is getting special headscarves," Bisi said, her voice sugary but her eyes sharp. Sadi, hearing the tone, replied lightly, "Oh, it's just a little extra we arranged." Your side has your peach scarves, no? The polite smiles faded quickly. I just hope nobody thinks they are more important than the bride's family tomorrow, Auntie Bisi said, not so subtly. Auntie Said bristled. We are one family now. Nobody is competing unless someone wants to create competition, she said, raising an eyebrow. That did it. Are you implying I'm looking for competition? Me? See me see, wahala! Bisi exclaimed, hands on her hips. Side set down her drink and squared up. If the shoe fits, wear it. You're the one making an issue out of nothing, she retorted. Voices rose. Nearby conversations died down as people turned to watch the brewing showdown. Relatives started inching closer, ready to intervene. Mama Tola quickly came up beside her sister Bisi, placing a gentle hand on her arm. Ejo Emabinu, she pleaded softly. Please don't get angry. On the other side, Mama Kunle was whispering to Sade, calm down, not here please. For a moment it seemed the aunties might calm down, but then, as fate would have it, a waiter passed by with a tray of small chops, assorted appetizers, and Auntie Sedi casually took 2 spring rolls. Auntie Bisi, still keyed up, saw that and muttered, no wonder some people haven't gotten puff puff. Others are busy taking plenty. She said it under her breath, but Sadi heard it. Auntie Said spun around, eyes flashing. Bisi, are you calling me greedy? She said loudly. Auntie Bisi clapped her hands in that Nigerian manner. Can you imagine? If you want to pack all the food, pack it. Just don't complain when your dress doesn't fit tomorrow. She fired back without thinking. A collective gasp. Yeah! Did she just say that? Someone whispered. Sade's mouth dropped open in shock at the not-so-subtle insult. In a burst of anger, Auntie Sad picked up a piece of puff-puff from the tray and flicked it in Auntie Bisi's direction. The fried dough ball sailed through the air and bounced off Bisi's shoulder onto the ground. It was more of a symbolic, take your words back, than an attempt to harm. But it was definitely a shocking and oddly comical sight. For a split second, the entire yard went silent. Then a few younger cousins couldn't help snickering. The image of 2 grown aunties flinging puff-puff at each other was absurd. Even Tola, watching in dismay, had to admit it was like a scene from a comedy. But Auntie Bisi was not amused. She let out an offended cry and reached for a plastic cup on the table, possibly considering retaliation. Immediately, Tola and Kunle rushed forward. Kunle gently grabbed Sadi's arm while Tola clung to Bisi, physically keeping them apart. Please, Auntie, it's enough, Tola begged, her eyes wide. This is supposed to be a happy time. Kunle added with a disarming grin, I beg, aunties, forgive and forget for our sake. Biko. Mixing English, Pidgin, and a bit of Igbo in his plea made a few people grin despite the tension. Both aunties huffed, breathing hard, but the presence of the bride and groom pleading in front of them finally cooled them off. Auntie Said muttered, I have nothing more to say, and allowed Mama Kunle to pull her toward the house. Auntie Bisi sniffed, Better so! And let Mama Tola steer her to the opposite side. The crowd of relatives exhaled in relief. The party cautiously resumed, but the mood was edgy. People kept a side eye on the 2 feuding women for the rest of the evening. Tola and Kunle were embarrassed and worried. This was not the peaceful pre-wedding night they'd hoped for. As they said goodnight, Kunle squeezed Tola's hand and whispered, Don't worry, tomorrow will be better. No more drama. Tola nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling of dread. If their aunties nearly came to blows over headscarves and puff-puff, what would happen on the wedding day? The wedding morning arrived bright and warm. By 5 a.m., Tola's family house was wide awake. The compound was buzzing with activity, relatives ironing clothes, aunties boiling water for tea, and cousins running errands. Tola sat in her bedroom surrounded by her bridesmaids as the makeup artist worked on her face. She tried to stay calm, but her heart was thumping with anticipation and a bit of anxiety. In one corner of the living room, Auntie Bisi was directing the younger cousins like a drill sergeant. Bola, go and iron the boys' suits now. And where is that cooler? We need to pack the drinks and small chops. She hustled about in a wrapper and headscarf, full of nervous energy. Mama Tola was calmer but equally busy. She balanced her phone on her shoulder, talking to the caterer, while simultaneously helping tie a younger niece's hair ribbon. A few mishaps happened, as expected. The florist arrived very late with the bouquets, nearly causing panic. One excited young cousin tripped over a stack of soda bottles, sending them clattering and even breaking a couple. Hey! Who did that? Auntie Bisi rushed over, giving the guilty boy a light smack on the arm. If you break anything again, I go show you paper, she scolded, meaning she'd teach him a lesson. He yelped an apology and scurried off. Another little cousin spilled a cup of tea, narrowly missing the wedding gown, and a small gift cake, meant for the family, got accidentally knocked off the kitchen counter, splattering icing on the floor. Each time something happened, a round of shrieks and scoldings rang out, followed by assurances of, it's okay, no problem, from others trying to keep the bride calm. Tola could hear the chaos from her room and just shook her head with a wry smile. Wedding morning jitters in full force, she thought. Over at Kunle's apartment across town, the groom's side had their own comedy of errors. Kunle was struggling with his bow tie when his best man Yemi arrived looking sheepish. Kunle noticed Yemi wasn't holding the garment bag that should contain his wedding suit. Please don't tell me, Kunle began, feeling his stomach drop. Yemi slapped his forehead. Bro, I'm so sorry. I forgot to pick it up from the dry cleaner yesterday and they closed. Kunle's eyes widened in panic. The wedding was only a couple of hours away. Seeing the look on his face, Yemi added quickly, they open at 8 a.m. I'll be there the minute they open and rush to the church, I swear. It was 7:15 a.m. now, cutting it very close. Kunle ran a hand over his head and paced. Guy, you won't kill me? He said in exasperation, then took a deep breath. Okay, go sharply. Make sure it's the first thing they hand out. Yemi bolted back out the door. Mama Kunle, who was staying with her son to help him prepare, poked her head into the room. What's the matter? Kunle forced a grin. Nothing serious, Mom. Little delay with my sweet. Mama Kunle saw through him and clicked her tongue. This your friend, she said, shaking her head. Don't worry. Okomi, my son. Worst case, wear that old suit from your cousin's wedding. Kunle groaned, thinking of the ill-fitting old grey suit hiding in his closet. Mommy, God forbid, he said, and they both laughed. The tension eased. Back at the bride's house, Tola's makeup was finished and it looked flawless. Her face glowed with a soft, elegant look, and the gold eyeshadow complemented the gel that one of her aunties had tied for her. With a lot of care, Tola slipped into her wedding gown. It fit perfectly and was absolutely beautiful. When she stepped out into the living room in the full attire, there were audible gasps and cheers. Our beautiful bride! Fine gay, you go cute person, oh! Her cousins complimented in a mix of English and Pidgin. Tola blushed and felt a surge of happiness. For a moment, the morning's chaos was forgotten. By 9:15 a.m., the fleet of decorated cars had arrived to take the bridal party to the church. Only a little behind schedule. Not bad, considering the earlier madness. Just as they were about to leave, two of Tola's cousins started arguing loudly by the gate. Apparently, one had parked badly and scratched the other's car while trying to maneuver out. They were now in each other's faces, gesticulating. You know they look where you they go. Why you block road park there? Auntie Bisi stomped over to scold them. Will you two stop this nonsense? We are late. The young men quickly stepped away from each other, mumbled apologies, and decided the dispute could wait. The bridal convoy finally set off, honking and weaving through the streets. In the lead car, Tola sat next to her father, who patted her hand gently. She closed her eyes briefly and whispered a prayer for the day to go well. No more surprises, please. Little did she know, the biggest surprises were yet to come. Despite all prior troubles, the church ceremony began on a hopeful note. The venue was a large church hall in Abuja, decorated with white and gold ribbons and bouquets of fresh flowers. Guests filled the pews, dressed to the nines in their lace aso-ebi and formal suits. As the processional music started, Tola took a deep breath and walked down the aisle on her father's arm, a radiant smile on her face. Kunle stood at the front, next to his best man, who had thankfully arrived with the suit just in time. When Kunle saw Tola in her gown, his heart swelled. She looked like a queen. By the time they exchanged vows and rings, both were smiling with relief. They had made it to this moment at last. When the pastor politely asked if anyone objected to the union, a confused elderly uncle actually stood up, misunderstanding the question, thinking it was time to give a blessing. Kunle quickly waved for him to sit down, and the congregation chuckled as the old man muttered, "Sorry, oh," and sat. No objections, just a little comic relief. With the formalities done, the officiating pastor pronounced them husband and wife. The congregation cheered and ululated in joy. Tola and Kunle beamed at each other as they shared their first kiss, feeling a wave of pure happiness. All they had to do now was dance out of the church and then head to the reception. Easy, right? Wrong! The receptional was where the real wahala hit. As a lively Yoruba praise song began, and the newlyweds started dancing down the aisle together, one of the little page boys, that same boisterous young cousin from the morning, suddenly broke away from his mother. In his excitement, he ran in front of Tola and Kunle, pretending his arm was an airplane wing. Before anyone could stop him, the boy's foot snagged on the flowing train of Tola's gown. Rape! The sound of lace tearing was heard as Tola stumbled backward. The poor poach boy tumbled to the floor, landing on his backside with a thud, and immediately burst into tears. Kunle quickly steadied Tola, who looked back in alarm at the child. One bridesmaid rushed forward and scooped up the wailing boy, carrying him inside. Tola's dress had a small tear along the edge of the train, but she was okay. The boy, thankfully, was uninjured, just scared and howling more from shock than pain. Guests had started murmuring in surprise at the interruption, some standing up to see what happened. Then, another mishap. The elaborate three-tier wedding cake, which had been set on a table near the entrance for the reception, became a casualty of the chaos. A groomsman, distracted by the commotion with the child, accidentally bumped into the cake table while hurrying to help. The tall cake wobbled. There were gasps as everyone watched in horror. In a heart-stopping moment, two of the tears slid off and splattered onto the floor in a heap of cake and icing. A glob of frosting even landed on Kunle's shoulder, leaving a white smear on his crisp sweet. For a second, silence. Then an eruption of noise. Some people screamed in dismay, others put their hands on their heads, and a few nervous laughs could be heard. One older auntie flung her hands in the air, exclaiming, "Chai! Nawa-o!" Meaning, "Oh, wow! What is this trouble?" That summed up the feeling. What else could go wrong? And as if to answer that question, the electricity suddenly went out. The cheerful music cut off and the fans whirred to a stop. The hall was now lit only by the hazy mid-morning sunlight, filtering through the high windows. A collective groan rose from the crowd. "NEPA! Why today?" someone shouted, cursing the power company, and a ripple of laughter actually passed through the gates. Typical Nigeria, even in the worst moments, humor finds a way. In the semi-darkness, voices echoed. Auntie Busy's voice rang out sharply. "I knew something like this would happen." Immediately, Auntie Said countered loudly, "Please don't start. This is nobody's fault." And just like that, those two were back at it, arguing even as everyone else was trying to figure out what to do. If your people had controlled those children. Don't you dare blame us for this cake, oh! Seeing the situation spiraling, Tola's father, Mr. Akinyele, stepped to the center and raised his hands. Please, everyone, calm her down, he urged in his deep voice. In his urgency, his English slipped into an Italian accent on calma, which in other circumstances might be funny. Let's all move to the reception hall quietly. There is still a celebration to be had. Biko, Ejo, please. His calm but firm tone cut through the noise. The guests began to collect themselves and shuffle toward the adjoining hall designated for the reception. Ushers and family members helped guide people out. In the semi-dark, a few phone flashlights beamed, illuminating the strange scene. The bride holding up part of her torn dress, the groom with icing on his suit, and relatives rushing about. Tola felt numb, on the verge of tears, but Kunle put an arm around her shoulders. We've said I do. That's the main thing, he whispered gently. She managed a small, grateful smile. It was true. They were officially married, even if the process had been a circus. Now they just had to make it through the rest of the day. In the reception hall, guests found seats amid the decorations and half-empty drink glasses, buzzing about the ceremony chaos. Soon, the backup generator hummed to life, restoring lights and the microphone. The MC grabbed the mic, dabbing his forehead. What a ceremony, eh? He joked, earning some laughter. But the love is still strong, Abi? At the center table, Tola and Kunle sat together, catching their breaths. Seeing their smiles returning, the MC had an idea. Folks, our bride and groom didn't get a fair chance for vows. How about a quick do-over here? The crowd cheered in agreement. Tola and Kunle looked at each other and nodded. Before they began, Auntie Busy suddenly stood up and took the mic. First, I want to say sorry, she announced, her voice a bit shaky but loud enough. She shot an apologetic look to Auntie Sade. All the wahala today. I know I caused some. Sade, my sister, forgive me. We are one family now. Her eyes were watery with tears. Auntie Sade hurried over and hugged her tightly. I'm sorry too. No more fighting. We are in this together, Sad said sincerely. The guests applauded as the two aunties reconciled with smiles. Mama Tola and Mama Kunle exchanged relieved glances, finally at peace seeing their older sisters make up. Then, in front of everyone, Tola and Kunle reaffirmed their vows. Holding hands, Kunle spoke warmly, not even needing a paper. Tola, today was a roller coaster, but I'd ride it again and again if it ends with you as my wife. I promise to stand by you in calm or chaos. I love you. A collective "Oh!" filled the hall at his words. Tola wiped a happy tear and replied, Kunle, you make me smile even in crises. I promise to be by your side through every high and every low. There's nothing we can't face together. I love you so much. The hall erupted in cheers and claps. The makeshift officiant, an uncle who was a pastor, grinned and declared, What God has joined together, no one can put asunder. Amen, the crowd responded joyfully. You may kiss the bride. Again, he added. Kunle laughed and lifted Tola's veil once more, and they shared a sweet kiss to louder whoops and whistles than the first time. Now, the wedding truly felt complete. The DJ promptly launched into an upbeat Afrobeats tune, and the celebration kicked into high gear. Tola and Kunle led the way onto the dance floor, laughing as they danced in their slightly rumpled wedding clothes. The bridal party and guests joined in, encircling them in a joyful dance. In joyous tradition, some family members came forward to spray naira notes on the couple, money fluttering around them like confetti and drawing cheers from everyone. Even Auntie BC and Auntie Sad were dancing side by side, competing playfully with their moves and then breaking into laughter. The entire family, bride's side and groom's side, mixed together on the dance floor. All smiles, no tension, just pure enjoyment. After everyone had eaten, a few relatives offered impromptu toasts. One uncle raised his cup and declared, "To family! We may have wahala, but we have love." The hall cheered. Another auntie shouted that they expected grandchildren next, making everyone roar with laughter as the newlyweds covered their faces in playful embarrassment. Finally, as dusk fell, it was time for the couple to depart. Family members gathered outside the hall to send them off. There were hugs, laughter, and plenty of blessings in both English and Yoruba. Auntie Bisi and Auntie Sadi stood arm in arm, beaming with pride as they waved. The two mothers embraced each other warmly, tears of joy on their cheeks. Tola and Kunle thanked everyone and slipped into their decorated car amidst cheers and a shower of rice and petals. They waved through the window as the car pulled away. Tola rested her head on Kunle's shoulder and sighed. "What a day!" Kunle chuckled and said, "Chaotic but perfect because I have you." They smiled at each other, content and happy. As the family watched the car disappear down the road, they huddled together, united at last. Despite all the wedding wahala, the day ended in laughter, love, and one big happy family. It became a favorite family story, a folktale of chaos turned to unity, proving that no matter the wahala, love always wins.